beautiful people. My name is Molly and I'm a medical student in Canada. Welcome to my YouTube channel called The Med Trek. And in this video, we're going to be talking about how to get into Northern Ontario's School of Medicine. This video is going to be part of my video series about how to get into all the different medical schools. The idea behind this video series is that each medical school is very different, and there's different tricks and tips and advice that you can use to get into each of these schools. And the best way to get this tips and tricks and advice is from people who've been successful through this process. So I've tried to find as many different med students who've just gone through this process, and we're interviewing them to try and get their advice on how to be successful. So as you guys can see, I have a guest here today. Why don't you go and introduce yourself?
Hi guys, my name is Nicole and I am an incoming first year at the Northern Ontario School of Medicine. I just graduated from Lakehead and I think I took a more traditional pre-med route. My undergrad was in applied life sciences, so pretty basic science courses, but yeah, I'm really excited to be here. So thanks so much, Molly.
Thank you for coming. I feel like Northern Ontario School of Medicine is probably one of the harder schools to apply to in Ontario. I personally didn't apply to Northern Ontario School of Medicine. We'll probably just call it NOSM from now on, but I didn't apply to it. So I'm really interested to hear about the process you went through and how you were able to be successful. To kind of start off, why don't you talk about the school itself? What should we know about it? Why is it a great medical school? Maybe talk about why you're excited to start there really soon.
Absolutely. So NOSM has two different campuses in Northern Ontario. So the first being in Thunder Bay and the other in Sudbury. They were partnered with Lakehead and Laurentian, but that did recently change. However, they still have really close connections with both schools and they are located on those campuses. So it's a 4-year program like most of the other ones in Canada, except for a few exceptions. And the overall mandate of NOSM is to improve the health of people living in Northern Ontario. So it is quite specific to the people living here. And their mandate really is to have physicians that want to work in the North. So their goal is to create a class that really looks like what we see in Northern Ontario. So whether that be a lot of Francophone students, Indigenous students, really just what we see here so that we are able to best understand and work with the population here in the North.
That's awesome. And obviously you live in the North, and that's one of the reasons why you applied, and you told me that this was the top school that you wanted to get into. So congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Now for somebody who is thinking of applying to NOSM, what do they need to know about that application process?
Yeah, so I think that although there are different aspects of the NOSM application that make it unique, it was pretty similar to some of the other ones in Ontario. So it does go through OMSAS, so you still have to do, that general application, your autobiographical sketch, and then like quite a few of the other schools, there were essays as well. There is no MCAT required for NOSM. There's also no CASPER required. So those are things that you wouldn't have to worry about, which is nice. Yeah, but it does leave you a lot more time to put that effort into your essays, which are, I think, really the key for your pre-interview score.
Okay, so you talk about these essays. Now, the other schools that have essays are Toronto and Western. What do you have to do for the essays for NOSM? How many are there? Do the topics change each year? How do you be successful in terms of that?
Right. So to my understanding, the NOSM essays are the same every year. And there is 4 essay questions, and then there are 3 additional essay answers where you pick different things from your sketch. So you can isolate the 3 most important things on your autobiographical sketch and expand on them, which I think was really nice because one of the hardest parts about writing the sketch is fitting everything you want to say into that small little character amount. So it was really nice to take the ones that I think made me stand out the most and have the chance to expand on them and show the admissions committee what they really mean. So there are 4 different essays that do not touch upon your ABS in the NOSM application. So the first one is, please describe how you've developed resilience and coping mechanisms. How will you utilize these skills to support yourself during your medical training in making informed and rational decisions when faced with difficult circumstances? So the second one is, please describe an experience you have had interacting with individuals from backgrounds different from yours. How would this experience translate to working within a healthcare environment and or with patients? This third one is, what types of feedback do you prefer to enhance your learning in and outside of an academic environment, and why? And then the last question is, NOSM's social accountability mandate is to improve the health of the people of the communities of Northern Ontario. Describe how you plan to embody this mandate as a medical student and future physician, and how this is factored into your decision to apply to NOSM. So very loaded questions. I feel like there's questions within the question.
They just layer it on there, right?
There's
It's like
a lot that you're going to want to put into those. So with that said, I think that my best advice would be to write these in a way that shows the admissions committee who you are and why you would be a great fit for the school, because that's essentially what they're looking for, is what makes you unique and why you would be a good match as an awesome student. So I think that you should try to incorporate some specific examples or experiences from your life on how maybe what something you've done in your life and how you've responded to it and how that could relate to medicine, and whether that's how that could relate to being a medical student or being a physician, because they are different roles. But ultimately how that would fit into the vision and the goals and the mandates of the Northern Ontario School of Medicine. So you also want to make sure that you're able to demonstrate this in a way that aligns with their goals, but is also genuine to you, instead of forcing connection, something that really means a lot to you and is going to make you be successful as a student given their education format.
That's some really great advice. And I think for a lot of people, essays are kind of scary. One, I think, because most of us are science students, so we don't really do essays, that creative writing or more lab reports or tests. And I know you talked a little bit about, being concise and such, and, people who are watching this, if you watch other videos, it is kind of a general theme that we see is, you don't have to have this this flowery, nice language, you don't want it to be like this beautiful poem of an essay. You really want to get, to the core of your experiences and let them know. One thing also, which is a really good piece of advice, is make sure you answer the questions. I think it's sometimes really hard when you have these questions that have multiple parts to it, that you might find that you're not actually answering the questions.
Yes, absolutely. I think specifically with that question about feedback, it's easy to say, I do best with all kinds of feedback, blah, 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 but you want to actually answer the question. And that was the biggest piece of advice that I got from other students that were helping me. So you want to make sure, yeah, you're definitely answering the question and having a flat out answer that really properly addresses it.
Now, for a lot of people, essays again are kind of a daunting task. How do you what's your best advice for approaching this? When should you start? How many drafts should you do? Who should be checking these essays? If are you getting help, with feedback for the essays?
So I think like most pre-med students, I'm an absolute perfectionist. So I started my essays as soon as OMSAS opened in early July. And I think that in the beginning, it was kind of more brainstorming and outlining instead of going actually to make a full first draft. That took me maybe a month or so until I actually got into the hang of it and really understood what I wanted to say before I started drafting. And I think that was really helpful in order to put everything that I wanted into my essays. I think that looking at these, it's really easy to want to shotgun and try and put every single thing in your ABS into your essays to really try to expand on them as much as you can. But a lot of times that's not genuine, and it would be forcing a connection that doesn't really make sense in your essay. So through this, you really want to take time to pick and choose the individual experiences. And they don't even have to be anything in your ABS. They could be something totally out of the blue that you think answers the question and helps paint a picture of who you are as a med student or who you are as a student, and how you can use your experiences to really succeed as an awesome student. Another piece of advice I would give is to go through NOSM's website. There's a ton of really great pages there that explain their vision, their goals, their mandates, anything like that that you think would help you succeed with these essays. They're a really great way to use keywords that you can relate to as well, and can make you stand out as somebody that would succeed in that program. So whether that be using their specific learning model, like working in a small group. If you have a great example of that, that's a really great thing to mention because NOSM does so much small group learning. So different things like that, or incorporating some of those buzzwords from their visions list, that would be a really great piece of advice, I think. So then there are the next 3 essays that are based on some of your entries from your autobiographical sketch. And the question that goes with this is, considering NOSM's mission and values and the self-directed small group distributed learning environment, select 3 of the entries that you've listed in your ABS and explain how they've specifically prepared you for being a medical student at the Northern Ontario School of Medicine. So with those, you can really pick whatever entries that you want, but I would pick the ones that you feel the most passionately about because it's easiest to write about what you like and what you're really passionate about. So for me, I decided to pick things that were from different categories of the ABS. I don't think this really makes a difference, but I felt it was easiest to talk about them differently and make the essays unique in themselves. So I believe I selected an employment related, a research related, and a volunteer related. And for me, I think this is a really great way to make my application more well-rounded and really expand on some of those things that I wanted to talk about more to make myself seem more unique.
So you have to spend obviously a lot of time, a lot of effort in, making these essays. Once you've gone through them and you made a couple drafts, did you have anyone edit them for you?
Yes, I think that is such an important part of writing these essays. They can be really daunting, like you mentioned. So I think it's really helpful to have somebody go through them and nitpick for you, because after staring at them for so long, you get cross-eyed and sometimes you can't even see your own errors or something that doesn't flow as well as you think it does. So I personally had help from my family and from other pre-med students and as well as medical students. So I think specifically reaching out to students from the school that the essays match or the essays go with would be really, really helpful because they're already familiar with what NOSM's looking for. They've already succeeded with their own essays. And that they'd be able to give you the best possible feedback. So I had quite a few friends that were in NOSM that were so kind to help me going through all my essays. It was so appreciative, or I was so appreciative of that. And they provided some really amazing feedback, whether that just be things I can change or things I can add. Everything that they said was super helpful. And I would definitely recommend reaching out to someone that you know that's in medical school. If you don't know anybody that's in medical school, your family or your friends also works fantastic. I'm also so grateful for my family and friends that helped me. My poor mom, I think she had my essays memorized at one point. She read them so many times for me. But just having an extra set of eyes is so important, and it's so, so helpful because, again, you don't always recognize things when you read them so many times yourself. And then again, this is not something that I personally use, but I know a lot of other students have used their university's free writing center or academic advising. They always have free resources that you can use for essay editing or just having an extra eye look at writing pieces for you. So that's something I would also recommend as a free resource, because I know there's so many things online that you could pay for somebody to do, but you don't need to spend any money on these.
So thank you so much, Nicole, for going over the essays. That is really, really good advice. The essays, from my understanding, is worth a lot of that pre-interview score part of that application for NOSM. What other parts of the application do they look at? How do they kind of score applicants and decide who gets interviews?
Yeah, so NOSM's pre-interview score is divided into 3. So 1/3 of that is your GPA. The next third is your ABS and the essays. And the final portion of that pre-interview score is your context score. So that is based on where you've lived, where you currently live, and how that exactly aligns up with NOSM's mandates.
Awesome. So this context score, I think, is something that's different than all the other medical schools, at least here in Ontario. And I know I've heard from people, if you don't have a connection to the north or to, that rural area, you probably shouldn't apply, or you're not going to have a very good shot at applying. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So obviously I'm not on the admissions committee, not associated. So this is just from my own experience. But to my understanding, NOSM wants to put out classes of physicians that represent Northern Ontario and want to work in Northern Ontario. So often that means that the students are originally from Northern Ontario or have some kind of connection. However, it's even stated clearly on their website, you don't have to be from Northern Ontario to be accepted to NOSM. There's even some of my classmates that I've been able to meet virtually over Facebook or whatever that aren't remotely from Northern Ontario. Something that they are looking for is that you have a real interest in working with a Northern population. So a lot of times students have a connection in the sense that they've worked in other remote communities, doesn't have to be in Northern Ontario, can be elsewhere in Canada. or they just really have an interest in some of the social determinants of health that NOSM really focuses on and that are specific to people of Northern Ontario.
That's great to hear. I think it is a little bit of a misconception that, if you don't live in Northern Ontario, you can't apply, but you do need to find a connection, whether that's what you want to do in your future or what you've kind of already done in the past and the experiences you've had. So the other part of that formula we mentioned is GPA. Do you know what the cutoff is or what makes you competitive for NOSM in terms of GPA?
Yeah, so the GPA scoring for NOSM, I believe it is ranked competitively because it is 1/3 of your pre-interview score, and there is a minimum 3.0 on a 4.0 scale to apply. So it is set quite low, and I believe the average every year for each class is around 3.86. So while it is ranked competitively, it's definitely not the be-all end-all of your application.
That's good to know. I know for a lot of people, GPA can be a really stressful thing. And sometimes it's one of those things where you might have to go back and do a couple extra courses to, improve it or do a master's program or whatever it might be. But it is nice. And I do think some schools are trying to take more of a holistic approach and not focus too much on that GPA. And maybe with having no MCAT score, NOSM is kind of thinking the same thing of that. So, they want the essays to show the holistic approach of the applicant.
Yeah, I think that's really the best way to assess someone is to let them express themselves to you rather than basing them off just a single number score.
Plus, we don't want to write the MCAT. It's not a lot of fun at all. But another question I guess I have is because you were successful in getting into the school, what tips and tricks do you have for people who might be struggling with their GPA?
I think it's so easy, especially as a pre-med, to be intimidated by other students when you hear them talking about, doing every single textbook question and reading every chapter, but that really doesn't work for everybody. It didn't work for me at all. So I think being able to understand yourself and what helps you learn the best will be the key to your success and will really help you maintain that high GPA. I think another really important part of maintaining a high GPA is to not isolate yourself while trying to do so, whether that be to form study groups and tell your friends how you're feeling. And if you feel comfortable talking about your GPA with them, do so, and you guys can study together. That's always something that really helped me a lot. Something else too is reaching out to your TAs and professors. They're really there to help you and to make sure that you're understanding their content. So for example, after all the exams and the classes that I think I needed extra help on, I would always make a meeting with my professors or visit them during their office hours so that we can go through our tests and assignments together and that they can really point me in the right direction and tell me what I needed more work on. So that was a really great way for me to focus my attention when studying for the next tests and exams and really help me learn better how I learn.
That's awesome. I think for, a lot of people, there's so many different ways to learn and to study. The biggest thing, as you kind of already mentioned, is trying to find the one that works for you. The worst thing I see is, people come to me and they'll say, oh, that last semester I didn't do so great and I was studying this way, but this semester I'm going to do better because I'm just going to do the exact same thing, but more or harder. And it's like, that might not be the problem, right? Sometimes it's not usually effort. It's just things aren't working, things aren't clicking. So if you guys are, worried about your GPA, try and do a little research, see what everyone else does, maybe get some friends in the class or friends in your program, study with them, and do your best job to improve that GPA, because unfortunately for any medical school, GPA is still kind of a big part of your application. It is usually used for cutoffs and such. So even if you have the best essays in the world and the best experiences in the world, if you don't meet that cutoff, sometimes they won't look at your application. But thank you so much for those tips. That's awesome. So another question I have here for you is, after going through the whole process and you are now a NOSM medical student, why do you think your school picked you? Why were you that ideal candidate?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question. Like I mentioned, not associated with the admin committee, so I really don't know. Thankful that they did, though. I think one part of my application that really made me stand out was the research section of the ABS. I think a lot of students really struggle filling in that part, and it is really difficult to get research positions, but thankfully I was able to do so throughout my undergrad. So through that, I was involved in various internships. I did my honors thesis. I got a few publications all in the same lab. And that was a really great way for me to explore that area of medicine, because that's not something that I had prior experience with, but it is something that I became really passionate about. So I was able to write a lot for that section, which I think is something, again, not a lot of students have normally. So I think it was something that made me really unique.
That's awesome to hear. Maybe I'll ask another question, because research, getting research as an undergrad can be so hard. Do you have any tips for people who are maybe trying to find a research position?
Yeah, I think the best thing to do is to just put yourself out there. It can sound or feel kind of embarrassing at the time to sort of be asking for these positions, but really it's the best way to sort of network and to figure out what you like and whose research aligns with your own. So I think for me personally, I started by finding a lab in my city that I would have an interest in. So for me, I actually did my research in the NOSM lab. And then I found a professor whose research interests were really intriguing to me. So I didn't have any research experience besides my university labs. So I really wanted to get more experience and to learn some more of the hands-on experimental methods. So I found a professor who her research aligned well with my own interests. And then it just so happened that one of her PhD students was also my TA. So I reached out to her and I asked her if there was any positions available and if there would be a spot for me in that lab to further and then I asked her if there would be a spot for me in that lab to further explore my interests. And thankfully there was, but I know that it's not that easy for everybody. So cold emails and just putting yourself out there is a really great option as well, because all it
Yeah.
takes is one yes.
Yeah, it's unfortunate that there isn't always a lot of positions, and for a lot of people, positions are usually volunteer, and it's very, very rare to get a paid position. But that's my advice too for people if you're looking for a research position. Just get out of your comfort zone, send a lot of emails, try and meet people after class when we go back in person. Ask them about the research, be interested, and just it does take sometimes a little bit of luck. But don't sweat as well. I have lots of friends here at my medical school, and I'm sure at your medical school as well, that don't have research experience, don't have publications. But if you are able to, that's great. And as you can see, it might be your key to success, just like Nicole here. So just one last question before we say goodbye to Nicole. Do you have any last piece of advice or wisdom for people who are going through this application process right now?
Yeah, I know the road to medicine can be long and lonely and scary for so many students, but just know that if medicine is your passion, that it's absolutely going to work out for you. If you keep going on your path, nothing can stop you. You're going to be successful. I think it's really easy to look at other people's success and think, why am I not achieving that at the same time that they are? But everybody is on a different path and it's still going to work out for you. So the best thing that you can do is embrace your uniqueness, embrace your own path, and never lose hope.
I 100% agree. The only thing I would change is trek to medicine. It's a path and road was already taken on Instagram when I started this. But yes, completely agree with Nicole. If this is something that you want, if it's something that you feel that is true to your heart and where you belong, the only thing you can do is keep on the trek and do your best to continue to improve and such. So guys, we're gonna end off the video here. Thank you so much, Nicole, for coming and talking about the application process and NOSM. I hope you guys found this video useful, and best of luck if you guys are applying. As always, if you have any questions about the process of applying to medical school or have any questions about being a pre-med, you're more than welcome to message me on Instagram, or you can comment down below. Nicole has also been amazing and said that you can email her. What's your email, Nicole?
It's ncostanzo@nosm.ca, and I'll let Molly put it in the description below as well. Feel free to send me an email if you have any essay, interview questions, anything related to NOSM. I'm happy to help.
And she was successful in doing it, so I'm sure she'll be able to give you guys amazing tips. So we'll see you guys next time. Best of luck if you're applying this year. Have a great day. Goodbye.